I was the imam of a mosque with 3,000 members when Jesus appeared in my dream, but I kept preaching Islam every Friday for 6 years. What finally made me risk everything to tell the truth I had been hiding? My name is Ibrahim, and I am 29 years old. I was born in Dearborn, Michigan, to parents who immigrated from Egypt in 1989. My father was a construction worker who saved every dollar to give his family a better life in America. My mother cleaned houses during the day and took English classes at night. They worked harder than anyone I've ever known. And they raised me to be proud of two things: being American and being Muslim. Dearborn has the largest Arab population in the United States. Over 40,000 Muslims live in this one city outside Detroit. We had halal grocery stores on every corner, 5 mosques within 3 miles, had Arabic signs in the store windows. It was like growing up in a small piece of the Middle East, transplanted into America. I loved it. I felt connected to my heritage while still being fully American. From my earliest memories, Islam was the center of everything. My father woke me at 5 a.m. every morning for Fajr prayer. My mother taught me to recite Quranic verses while she cooked dinner. Our family life revolved around prayer times, Ramadan fasting, and mosque activities. But it never felt like a burden. It felt like home, like identity, like knowing exactly who I was supposed to be. I was different from other kids my age. While my classmates played video games and watched cartoons, I memorized the Quran. By age 10, I could recite 30 chapters perfectly. The imam at our mosque said I had a gift, that Allah had chosen me for something special. My parents beamed with pride every time someone complimented my devotion. In middle school, other Muslim boys started drifting away from strict religious practice. They wanted to fit in with American culture. They stopped praying 5 times daily. They ate non-halal food at school. Some even dated girls, which was completely forbidden. But I never wavered. I was the kid who brought a prayer rug to school and prayed in an empty classroom during lunch. The one who fasted during Ramadan, even when it fell during final exams. The one who never missed Friday prayers at the mosque. Have you ever been so certain about your purpose that you never questioned it? That was me throughout my teenage years. I knew Allah had called me to be a religious leader, to guide other Muslims, to defend Islam in America where our faith was often misunderstood and attacked. I studied Islamic theology with the same intensity other kids studied for the SAT. I learned Arabic fluently. I memorized hadith collections. I became an expert in Islamic jurisprudence by age 16. My high school guidance counselor suggested I apply to colleges. She thought I should study pre-law or business, something practical that would help me earn good money. But I had different plans. I wanted to study at an Islamic seminary, to become an imam like the man who had mentored me. My parents were thrilled. Having a son become an imam was the highest honor for a Muslim family. I attended the Islamic Institute of America in Dearborn, a prestigious school that trained imams for mosques across the country. The program was intense. 5 years of advanced Islamic studies, Arabic language mastery, Quranic interpretation, Islamic law, public speaking, counseling, everything needed to lead a Muslim community. I threw myself into the work with complete devotion. My professor said I was the best student they had seen in 20 years. I graduated top of my class in 2018 when I was 23 years old. Within months, I was offered a position as assistant imam at the Islamic Center of Greater Detroit, one of the largest and most respected mosques in America. I couldn't believe Allah had blessed me so quickly. Most new imams spent years working at small mosques before getting such an opportunity. The mosque had 3,000 registered members, families from Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Pakistan, and other Muslim countries. They came to Friday prayers, sent their kids to Islamic school, or celebrated Eid together, and looked to the imam for spiritual guidance. I was responsible for teaching classes, leading prayers, counseling families, and giving the Friday sermon twice a month. I loved every part of the job. Standing before hundreds of people teaching them about Allah felt like the greatest honor in the world. When people came to me with problems, marriage troubles, questions about faith, struggles with temptation. I could guide them using the Quran and Hadith. I felt useful, important, like I was fulfilling my divine purpose. In 2019, at age 24, I was promoted to senior imam. The previous imam had retired and the mosque board chose me to replace him. I was young for such a position. Most senior imams were in their 40s or 50s. But they said my knowledge, devotion, and the speaking ability made me the right choice. My parents cried with joy at my installation ceremony. Their son was the imam of one of America's largest mosques. My life was perfect. I had respect from the community, a comfortable salary, an apartment near the mosque, marriage proposals from families wanting their daughters to marry an imam. I was living exactly the life I had dreamed about since childhood, serving Allah, leading His people, defending Islam in a non-Muslim country. Everything made sense. Everything fit together perfectly. Friday sermons were my favorite part of the job. I would spend all week preparing, reading Quran, studying commentaries, thinking about what message the community needed to hear. Then on Friday afternoon, I would stand in the mosque before hundreds of people and deliver a 30-minute sermon in Arabic and English, teaching them about Allah's greatness, warning them about sin, encouraging them to be faithful Muslims in American society. I preached about the dangers of Western culture, how television and movies corrupted young Muslims, how American materialism distracted from spiritual devotion, how Christians had distorted the teachings of Jesus, who was really just a prophet, not God. I told people to be proud Muslims, to resist assimilation, to hold firmly to the faith passed down from Muhammad. And they listened, they nodded, they thanked me after services for strengthening their faith. My sermons were recorded and posted online. Muslims across America watched them. Some mosques even used my teachings in their own classes. I became known as a rising young imam who was uncompromising about Islamic truth, conservative in my theology, passionate in my preaching, devoted to Allah above everything else. In my private prayer time, I would thank Allah for blessing me so abundantly, for giving me this position, for using me to guide so many people. I felt grateful every single day. I believed Allah was pleased with my service, that I was storing up rewards in paradise, that my life was exactly what He wanted it to be. But then something happened that shattered everything I believed, something I never expected and couldn't explain. Something that would haunt me for years and eventually destroy the life I had built. It started on December 15th, 2019. I remember the exact date because it was the night everything changed. I had given a Friday sermon that morning about the importance of hating the enemies of Islam, about how Christians and Jews had corrupted their scriptures, about how Muslims needed to be separate from non-believers. The sermon was well received. Many people thanked me for speaking boldly. That night, I went to bed around 11 p.m. As usual, I prayed before sleeping, read a few pages of Quran, then closed my eyes feeling peaceful and satisfied. I fell asleep quickly, but at exactly 2:30 a.m., I woke up suddenly. My room was still dark, silent, but I felt like someone was watching me. I opened my eyes and saw a man standing at the foot of my bed. My first reaction was terror. Someone had broken into my apartment. I reached for my phone to call 911, but then I saw his face and I froze. This wasn't a burglar or attacker. This was something completely different. The man was wearing white robes that seemed to glow with soft light. His face was kind but powerful. His eyes held a love I had never seen in any human. He wasn't threatening, but his presence filled my entire bedroom with an overwhelming sense of peace and authority. I should have been terrified, but I felt completely calm. He spoke to me without moving his lips. His voice was in my head and my heart at the same time. Ibrahim, he said, I am Jesus. I am the one you speak against. I am the one you teach people to reject. But I love you, and I have come to show you the truth. I tried to respond but couldn't speak. My mouth wouldn't move. My body was frozen. I could only listen as Jesus continued speaking. He said I had been teaching lies about him, that he wasn't just a prophet, that he was God himself who came to earth as a human, that he died for the sins of the world and rose from the dead, that Islam had rejected the truth about him. Jesus showed me visions then, like watching a movie in my mind. I saw him healing sick people, walking on water, raising the dead, being crucified, rising from the tomb, ascending to heaven. Each vision felt more real than any memory I had, more real than the room around me. I was witnessing things that happened 2,000 years ago as if I was actually there. Then Jesus showed me something that broke my heart. He showed me all the people I had led away from him. Every sermon where I taught that Jesus was just a prophet. Every class where I said Christianity was a corrupted religion. Every person who listened to me and turned away from the truth because of my words. I saw the spiritual damage I had done, and I felt crushing guilt. Jesus said I had a choice. I could continue teaching lies and lead more people astray, or I could accept the truth and follow him. He warned me that choosing him would cost me everything. My position as imam, my respect in the community, my family's honor, possibly even my life. But he promised that eternal life with him was worth any temporary suffering on earth. I wanted to ask questions, to argue, to defend Islam, but I couldn't speak. I could only feel the overwhelming love radiating from Jesus, love that accepted me even though I had spent years speaking against him, love that forgave me even though I had led thousands of people away from truth, love that I had never experienced it in all my years of Islamic devotion. Then Jesus was gone. The light faded. My room was dark and silent again. I sat up in bed shaking, sweating, my heart racing so fast I thought I might have a heart attack. I looked at my clock. It was 2:47 a.m. The entire encounter had lasted only 17 minutes. But those 17 minutes had destroyed everything I believed about God, Islam, and my purpose in life. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in my bed replaying what happened over and over. Had I really seen Jesus? Had he actually appeared in my bedroom? Or was it a dream, a hallucination, some kind of psychological break from the stress of being a young imam with so much responsibility? I tried to convince myself it wasn't real, just a vivid nightmare brought on by too much work and not enough rest. I had been preparing extra hard for Ramadan, which was coming in a few months. Maybe my mind had created this vision from exhaustion, but even as I tried to rationalize it, I knew the truth. What I experienced was real, more real than anything I had ever experienced. Jesus Christ had appeared to me, and he had revealed that everything I believed was wrong. The sun rose at 6:15 a.m. Time for Fajr prayer. I walked to my bathroom to perform wudu, the ritual washing before prayer. But as I washed my hands, I felt sick. How could I pray to Allah after Jesus had revealed himself as God? How could I face Mecca when the true God had stood in my bedroom just hours earlier? I went through the motions, washing my face, arms, head, and feet. But it felt empty, mechanical, like I was performing a play instead of worshipping. I laid out my prayer rug facing Mecca. I began the familiar Arabic words I had recited thousands of times, but they stuck in my throat. Each word felt like a lie. I was praising Allah as the only God, but Jesus had shown me he was God. I was declaring Muhammad as Allah's messenger, but Jesus had said Islam was false. I finished the prayer but felt no peace, only confusion and guilt. I called the mosque and told them I was sick, that I needed to rest and wouldn't be coming in for a few days. The assistant imam said he would cover my responsibilities. I spent that entire day in my apartment, unable to do anything productive. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't stop thinking about Jesus standing at the foot of my bed. Have you ever learned something that made you question your entire life? That's where I was, 24 years old, an imam responsible for 3,000 Muslims, and suddenly uncertain about everything I had built my life on. If Jesus was really God, then Islam was false. If Islam was false, then my whole life was a lie. My education, my career, my purpose. Everything was built on a foundation that was crumbling beneath me. For the next 3 days, I barely left my apartment. I told people I had the flu, but really, I was having a spiritual crisis like nothing I had ever experienced. I would pace my living room for hours, sit on my couch staring at walls, lie in bed unable to sleep. The vision of Jesus kept replaying in my mind. His face, his voice, his love, it was inescapable. On the fourth day, I decided I needed to understand what had happened. I opened my laptop and started researching. I typed Jesus appearing to Muslims into Google. Thousands of results came up, article after article about Muslims who claimed Jesus had appeared to them in dreams and visions. Some converted to Christianity, others were confused like me. Many were killed by their families for apostasy. I read testimonies from imams, mosque leaders, and devout Muslims across the Middle East and Asia who had encountered Jesus. Their stories were eerily similar to mine. Jesus appearing in white robes, speaking with love instead of judgment, showing them he was God and offering salvation. Many said they hid their conversion for years out of fear. Some were still hiding it. I found videos of former Muslims sharing their stories, their faces blurred, their voices disguised, because telling the truth about Jesus could get them killed. I watched one video of a man from Pakistan who had been an imam for 15 years. Jesus appeared to him and he converted secretly. He preached Islam on Fridays while reading the Bible at night. He lived that double life for 3 years before his family discovered his Bible and beat him nearly to death. He escaped to Europe and was now openly Christian, but he could never return home. That video terrified me. Was that my future? Living a lie, pretending to be a faithful imam while knowing the truth was something completely different. How long could someone do that before going crazy? And what would happen if people found out? Dearborn had 40,000 Muslims. My family, my friends, everyone I knew. They would see me as a traitor, an apostate, someone who deserved death according to Islamic law. I closed my laptop feeling more confused than ever. I wanted to talk to someone, but who? I couldn't tell my parents. It would destroy them. I couldn't tell other imams. They would report me to the community. I couldn't tell my Muslim friends. They would abandon me, or worse. I was completely alone with this secret. That night, I prayed to Jesus for the first time in my life. Not a formal prayer like in Islam, just honest conversation. I said I didn't know what to do, that I was scared, that I needed help understanding what was real. I asked him to show me again if he was truly God, to give me confirmation that what I saw wasn't just a dream. Nothing happened that night. Jesus didn't appear. I fell asleep disappointed and confused. But when I woke up the next morning, something was different. I felt peace, not the nervous, fearful peace I had known in Islam, where one mistake could destroy your standing with Allah. Real peace, deep peace, the kind that doesn't make logical sense but settles into your bones anyway. I went back to work at the mosque the next day. People asked how I was feeling. I lied and said much better. The assistant imam had handled things well in my absence. I reviewed the schedule for upcoming events, met with families needing counseling, prepared for Friday's sermon. Everything looked normal on the outside, but inside I was completely broken. Friday came. I had to give a sermon. Standing before the congregation felt impossible. How could I preach Islam knowing Jesus was the truth? But what choice did I have? If I refused to preach, people would ask questions. If I preached the truth about Jesus, I would be removed immediately, maybe arrested, possibly killed. So I did the only thing I could. I preached Islam while my heart screamed Christianity. The sermon was about faithfulness in trials, about trusting Allah even when life is difficult, about not letting doubts weaken your devotion. Every word felt like poison in my mouth. I was encouraging people to hold firmly to Islam, while knowing that Islam was leading them away from Jesus. I was the blind leading the blind, and I hated myself for it. After the sermon, people thanked me. They said my words had strengthened their faith. They shook my hand and praised Allah for giving them such a devoted imam. I smiled and accepted their gratitude, but inside I felt like the worst kind of hypocrite, a fraud, a liar who was actively harming people by keeping them from truth. This became my pattern for the next 6 years, preaching Islam publicly, seeking Jesus privately, living a double life that was slowly destroying me from the inside. I would give Friday sermons defending Muhammad and attacking Christianity. Then I would go home and read the Bible I had bought online and hidden under my mattress. I would teach classes about the importance of Islamic prayer. Then I would pray to Jesus in secret, asking for forgiveness and guidance. During those 6 years, Jesus appeared to me 7 more times, always at night, always when I was alone. He never condemned me for continuing to preach Islam. He just reminded me that he loved me, that he understood my fear, that he was waiting for me to find the courage to tell the truth. Each visit gave me strength to continue, but also increased the guilt of living a lie. I became an expert at hiding my true beliefs. When mosque members asked theological questions, I would give them Islamic answers while knowing Christian truth. When young Muslims came to me confused about faith, I would encourage them in Islam while wishing I could tell them about Jesus. When families asked me to pray for them, I would pray Islamic prayers out loud while praying to Jesus in my heart. The cognitive dissonance was exhausting. My mind was constantly at war with itself. Part of me wanted to tell the truth immediately, regardless of consequences. Part of me was terrified of losing everything. Part of me felt guilty for leading people astray. Part of me rationalized that I was protecting my family from shame. I was living in a prison of my own making, and I couldn't find the key to escape. My parents noticed changes in me over those years. I became quieter, more withdrawn, less passionate about Islamic activism. My mother asked if I was depressed. My father wondered if the stress of being an imam was too much. I assured them everything was fine, just tired from work, just needing some rest. More lies on top of lies. I avoided relationships during this time. Several families wanted to arrange marriages for me. Having an imam as a son-in-law was desirable, but I couldn't marry someone while living this lie. What kind of husband would I be? Pretending to be Muslim while believing in Jesus? It wouldn't be fair to any woman. So I made excuses, said I was too busy with mosque duties, that I wanted to focus on my career, that the right person hadn't come along yet. By 2025, I was 29 years old. I had been living this double life for over 6 years. 6 years of pretending, 6 years of guilt, 6 years of knowing truth, but being too afraid to speak it. I felt like I was going crazy. The weight of the secret was crushing me. I would have nightmares about being exposed, about angry mobs at the mosque, about my parents crying in shame, the check about being beaten or killed for apostasy. But I also had dreams about being free, about publicly following Jesus, about telling people the truth that had changed my life, about helping other Muslims discover what I had discovered. Those dreams were beautiful but terrifying, because making them real would cost me everything I had known for 29 years. Then, something happened that forced my hand, something that made continuing the lie impossible. Something that finally gave me the courage to risk everything for truth. In March 2025, a teenage girl named Amira came to me for counseling. She was 16 years old, the daughter of a respected family in our mosque community. She had been struggling with depression, and her parents asked if I could talk with her. We met in my office at the mosque with the door open, as required by Islamic protocol. Amira sat across from my desk looking scared and exhausted. She had dark circles under her eyes. Her hands shook as she spoke. She told me she had been having dreams about a man in white robes. He kept telling her he loved her, that he had died for her, that she didn't need to earn God's love through perfect performance. The dreams had been happening for 3 months. She was terrified they meant she was going crazy or being deceived by demons. My heart stopped as she described the dreams. She was experiencing exactly what I had experienced. Jesus was appearing to her, calling her, revealing himself. I knew what this meant. She was being drawn toward Christianity, and she had come to me, the imam, for help staying in Islam. I looked at this frightened girl and faced an impossible choice. I could do my job as an imam, tell her the dreams were from Satan, encourage her to pray more and fast more and resist the deception, keep her in Islam where she would continue living in fear and performance-based religion That's what I had done for hundreds of other people over 6 years. Or I could tell her the truth, that the man in her dreams was Jesus, that he was real, that he was God, that Islam was false and Christianity was true, that following him would cost her everything but give her what her soul was desperate for. That truth would set her free, even if freedom came with suffering. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting someone else? That's where I was sitting in my office with Amira. If I told her the truth, she might tell her parents. Who would tell the mosque board? Who would investigate me? Who would discover my secret? My life as I knew it would end. But if I lied to her, I would be pushing her away from Jesus, away from the truth that could save her. I would be doing to her what I had done to thousands of others. I prayed silently to Jesus. What should I say? What would you have me do? And I felt his answer in my spirit. Tell her the truth, it's time. The 6 years of hiding were over. Jesus was giving me a final push, a divine appointment I couldn't ignore. This girl's eternal destiny was more important than my comfort or reputation. I took a deep breath and asked Amira if she could keep a secret. Something that could get both of us in serious trouble if anyone found out. She looked confused but nodded yes. So I told her everything about Jesus appearing to me 6 years ago. About learning that he was God and Islam was false. About living a double life all this time. About the guilt of leading people away from truth while knowing better. Amira's eyes grew wider with each word. When I finished, she was crying. She said she thought she was the only one, that she was going insane, that no one would understand. I told her she wasn't alone, that Jesus was real and he was pursuing her, that the dreams meant he loved her and wanted a relationship with her, that following him would be the hardest and best decision of her life. We talked for 2 hours. I answered her questions from what I had learned secretly reading the Bible. I explained how Christianity was different from Islam, how grace replaced performance, how Jesus' death paid for sins once and for all, how salvation was a free gift, not something earned. I watched her face transform as truth set her free from years of religious anxiety. At the end of our conversation, Amira asked if she could become a Christian right there in my office. I said yes. We prayed together. She confessed her sins and accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior. I watched her shoulders relax, her face brighten. The fear leave her eyes. She had been set free, and in helping her find freedom, I had finally found the courage to pursue my own. Amira left my office as a new Christian. I warned her to be careful, to not tell her parents yet, to let me figure out how to handle the situation. But I knew our secret wouldn't last long. 16-year-old girls aren't good at hiding life-changing experiences. Eventually, her parents would notice something different, would ask questions, would discover the truth, and then everything would explode. I went home that night knowing I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I had actively led someone away from Islam toward Christianity, not just in my private thoughts, but in actual action. I was no longer just a secret Christian hiding in plain sight. I was now actively evangelizing, converting Muslims to Christianity. If that was discovered, the consequences would be severe. But I also felt lighter than I had in 6 years. I had finally told someone the truth. I had helped a desperate girl find Jesus. I had done what Jesus had been calling me to do all along. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something new. Purpose, joy, rightness, like I had finally stepped into my real calling instead of the fake one I had been performing. Over the next 2 weeks, I met with Amira 3 more times. Always in my office, always with the door open so no one would suspect anything inappropriate. We studied the Bible together. I taught her about Jesus using stories from the Gospels. She asked questions I had asked myself years ago. Why did Jesus have to die? How could one man's death pay for everyone's sins? What made Christianity different from Islam? Each meeting deepened my own faith while strengthening hers. Teaching her was teaching myself. Helping her understand was helping me understand. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't just consuming Christian truth in private. I was sharing it, living it, acting on it. And it felt like being fully alive after years of walking dead. On the 3rd week, Amira's mother called me. She said Amira seemed different, happier, more peaceful, but also distant from the family. Must not participating in Islamic prayers like she used to. Asking strange questions about Jesus and Christianity, she wanted to know what we had discussed in our counseling sessions. If I had noticed anything concerning, I told her that teenage depression often manifests in religious questioning, that Amira was probably just processing her faith in a deeper way, that I would continue meeting with her to strengthen her Islamic beliefs. More lies. But what choice did I have? If I told the truth, both Amira and I would be in danger. 2 days later, Amira's father came to see me. He was a large man with an angry face. He said he had found a Bible hidden in Amira's bedroom, that she had confessed to reading it, that she had said, I told her Jesus was God and Islam was false, that she wanted to become Christian. He asked me directly if this was true, if I had corrupted his daughter with Christian lies. The moment I had feared for 6 years had arrived. I sat behind my desk looking at this angry father whose daughter I had led to Christ. I could deny everything. Say Amira misunderstood me, that I would never say such things, that she must be confused from her depression, save myself by throwing her under the bus. Or I could tell the truth, confirm what Amira said, admit that I was a secret Christian, that I had been living a lie for 6 years, that I had finally found the courage to help someone else find Jesus, face the consequences, whatever they might be. I looked at Amira's father and heard Jesus whisper in my spirit, tell him, it's time, the hiding is over. So I opened my mouth and spoke the words that would destroy my life as an imam. Yes, I said, everything Amira told you is true. Jesus appeared to me 6 years ago. I became a Christian. I've been hiding it this whole time. And I told your daughter the truth because she deserves to know who God really is. The father's face turned red with rage. He stood up so fast his chair fell backward. He shouted at me in Arabic, called me a traitor, an apostate, a deceiver, said I had destroyed his daughter, that I deserved to be killed for this betrayal. I sat calmly listening to his accusations, feeling strangely peaceful despite the storm erupting around me. Security guards came running into my office hearing the shouting. Amira's father told them what I had confessed. Within minutes, the assistant imam arrived, then mosque board members, then other community leaders. My office filled with angry men demanding to know if what they heard was true. If their imam, the man they trusted to lead them spiritually, had secretly become a Christian. I stood up behind my desk and told them everything, the whole story. Jesus appearing to me in December 2019, the 6 years of hiding, the guilt of leading people away from truth, the encounter with Amira that finally pushed me to stop lying. I told them Islam was false, that Jesus was God, that Muhammad was not a prophet, that the Quran was not divine revelation. Every sentence made them angrier, but I couldn't stop. After 6 years of silence, the truth was pouring out like water from a broken dam. They asked me to leave immediately. I was no longer the imam. I was no longer welcome in the mosque. I was no longer part of the Muslim community. I walked out of my office for the last time with a dozen angry men shouting behind me. 30 minutes earlier, I had been a respected religious leader. Now I was an outcast, a heretic, a traitor who had destroyed his own life by telling the truth. I drove home knowing my phone would start ringing within the hour. My parents, my siblings, my friends, everyone who knew me. The news would spread through Dearborn's Muslim community like wildfire. By evening, all 40,000 Muslims would know that Imam Ibrahim had become a Christian. The Imam who had preached against Christianity for years was now confessing Christianity as truth. The scandal would be massive, the shame would be unbearable, and the danger would be real. My phone started ringing before I even reached my apartment. My mother. I didn't answer. Then my father. Then my brother. Then numbers I didn't recognize. I turned my phone off and sat in my living room as the reality of what I had done settled over me. I was no longer an imam, no longer respected, no longer welcome in the community I had served for 6 years. I had just destroyed my entire life by telling the truth. But I also felt free. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to hide. I didn't have to lie about who I was and what I believed. The secret that had been crushing me was finally out in the open. The weight was gone. Even knowing the consequences would be terrible, I felt lighter than I had since that first night Jesus appeared. I turned my phone back on and called the one person I thought might understand. A pastor named Michael who ran a ministry helping Muslims convert to Christianity. I had found his website years ago during my secret research. I had almost contacted him dozens of times, but always chickened out. Now I had nothing to lose. Michael answered on the second ring. I told him who I was and what had just happened. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said he had been praying for me, that someone had told him about an imam in Dearborn who might be seeking Jesus, that God had put me on his heart 3 years ago. He said he had a safe house where former Muslims stayed when they first left Islam. He could pick me up within an hour. I packed a bag with clothes, my hidden Bible, and my laptop. Nothing else. I left my keys on the kitchen counter. The apartment belonged to the mosque and I no longer worked there. I took one last look at the place I had lived for 6 years. Then I walked out the door into my new life. Michael arrived in an unmarked van. He was a middle-aged white man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He said he understood how hard this was, that he had helped hundreds of Muslims through this transition, that I was safe now. We drove for 45 minutes to a house in Ann Arbor, a quiet neighborhood far from Dearborn's Muslim community. The house was simple but comfortable. 3-bedroom, a small kitchen, a living room with a couch and chairs. 2 other former Muslims were staying there. Both had left Islam recently and were hiding from their families while figuring out what to do next. We sat around the kitchen table and shared our stories. The relief of being with people who understood was overwhelming. That night I slept better than I had in 6 years. No more nightmares about being exposed. No more guilt about lying. No more fear of preaching on Friday. Just peace. Deep, real, lasting peace. Jesus had been telling me for years that truth would set me free. Now I finally understood what he meant. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Hundreds of texts and voicemails. Some from concerned friends asking if the rumors were true. Some from angry Muslims calling me terrible names. Some from family members begging me to recant. Some from people threatening to kill me for apostasy. I read through them feeling sad but not surprised. This was the cost of following Jesus publicly. My mother left a voicemail crying so hard she could barely speak. She said I had killed her, that I had destroyed the family honor, that she couldn't show her face in the community anymore, that I was worse than dead because at least death would have been honorable. Her pain cut deeper than any threat. I had brought shame to the woman who had sacrificed everything for me. My father left a message that was cold and brief. You are no longer my son. Do not contact me or any family member again. You are dead to us. The finality in his voice made it real. I had lost my family forever. They would mourn me as if I had actually died. In their eyes, I had. Over the next 3 weeks, I stayed at the safe house processing everything that had happened. Michael helped me think through next steps. I couldn't stay in Michigan. Too dangerous with such a large Muslim population. He suggested I relocate to a different state where I could start fresh. Somewhere I wasn't known as the imam who betrayed Islam. I also learned what happened to Amira. Her parents had sent her to Egypt to live with relatives. They hoped removing her from American influence would restore her Islamic faith. Before she left, she managed to send me one message through a secret email account. Thank you for telling me the truth. I'm scared, but I know Jesus is real. I'll keep believing no matter what they do to me. Her courage strengthened mine. Michael connected me with a church in Nashville, Tennessee that had experience helping former Muslims. They offered to help me relocate and find work. I had no money saved. The mosque had paid my salary, but I had sent most of it to my parents to help them in retirement. Now I had less than $2,000 to my name. Everything else was gone. I moved to Nashville in April 2025 and started rebuilding my life from zero. I got a job stocking shelves at a grocery store, minimum wage, nothing like the respect and salary I had as an imam, but honest work that didn't require me to lie. I rented a small apartment, 1 bedroom, basic furniture, quiet and safe, a world away from Dearborn. The church welcomed me like family. They didn't care that I used to be an imam. They just cared that I had found Jesus. They helped me study the Bible properly, taught me Christian theology, showed me what it meant to follow Jesus openly instead of secretly. For the first time, I was part of a community that knew the real me, not the pretend Muslim, the actual Christian. It was healing in ways I can't fully describe. In June 2025, I was baptized. The church rented a lake house and we drove out on a Saturday morning. Pastor David waded into the water with me. 50 people stood on the shore watching. As I went under the water, I felt the last 6 years of lying being washed away. When I came up, I was clean, free, fully Christian, not just in secret but in public. I cried tears of joy and relief. I started sharing my testimony at churches around Nashville, small churches mostly, places where 30 or 40 people gathered. I told them about being an imam, about Jesus appearing to me, about 6 years of hiding, about finally finding courage to tell the truth, about losing everything and gaining Jesus. Some people cried hearing my story. Others asked questions. A few former Muslims reached out wanting to know more. In September 2025, Amira contacted me again. She had escaped from Egypt and made it to Germany. She was living in a refugee center claiming asylum based on religious persecution. She was scared but hopeful. She said my courage to speak truth had given her courage to keep believing even when her family tried to force her back to Islam. We video called and prayed together. Both former Muslims, both following Jesus, both paying the cost. By December 2025, 1 year after everything exploded, I had helped 12 other Muslims find Jesus. Former colleagues from the mosque, people who had heard my story and started questioning Islam. Young Muslims struggling with doubts who needed someone to tell them Jesus was real. Each conversion reminded me why Jesus pushed me to stop hiding. Each person set free made my losses seem smaller. Today I work full-time for Michael's ministry, helping Muslims transition to Christianity. I counsel people going through what I went through. I share my testimony at mosques, universities, and the churches. I help former Muslims navigate the pain of family rejection and starting over. I do the work I should have been doing 6 years ago instead of hiding in fear. I haven't spoken to my parents since March 2025. They blocked my number, returned my letters unopened, told extended family I was dead. The pain of losing them hasn't gone away. I miss my mother's voice, my father's laugh, family dinners, Eid celebrations, everything I grew up with. But I know I made the right choice. Jesus was worth losing them. Truth was worth the sacrifice. Have you ever wondered if Jesus still appears to people? If he still calls Muslims to follow him? If conversion is worth the cost? I'm living proof that the answer to all those questions is yes. Jesus appeared to me when I was his enemy. He pursued me for 6 years while I hid in fear. He gave me courage when I finally chose truth over comfort. And he's been faithful every single day since. I wish I had been brave enough to tell the truth immediately back in December 2019. I wish I hadn't wasted 6 years living a lie. I wish I had helped Amira and others sooner instead of leading them deeper into Islam. But I also understand why Jesus was patient with me. He knew my fear. He knew the cost. He knew I needed time to find courage. If you're Muslim and questioning Islam, I want you to know Jesus is real. He appeared to me. He's appeared to thousands of others. He can appear to you too. Ask him to reveal himself. Seek truth sincerely. He promised that those who seek will find. And he always keeps his promises. If you're a secret Christian hiding your faith, I want you to know it's time to stop hiding. The burden of living a lie will crush you eventually. Tell the truth. Yes, it will cost you. Yes, you will lose people and then things you love, but you'll gain Jesus fully. And he's worth more than everything you lose. I promise you that. Jesus changed everything for me. I went from being an imam preaching Islam to a Christian telling people about Jesus. From hiding in fear to speaking truth boldly. From performing for God to resting in His grace. The journey was painful, the cost was high. But I would make the same choice again every single day because Jesus is real. He is alive. He is God. And He loves you more than you can imagine.